everybody. Ko Pamela Bell, Toko Ingoa. I'm Pamela Bell. I'm the Chief Everything Officer here at Building Institute Aotearoa. And welcome to our monthly Industry Insights, which is always focused on a really interesting, innovative and inclusive topic. And this time we're looking at job hunting in today's competitive environment. So it's really important for the graduates out there, or if you're coming to the end of your study, or if you're a career shifter inside the current construction industry. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. Or you might be reading or watching this on our resources tab of our website later on. Look, today I'm joined by two experts in this area, Amy Scarfe from Hayes and Loralei Saaga from Hayes. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. What we will do is we've got 5 really interesting topics. We are going to run through everything you need to know about writing a CV or a resume or curriculum vitae, everything you need to know to maximize your online profile through LinkedIn, how to build your personal brand, and also how to stand out in a competitive market, because that's certainly the environment we've got right now. And part of that is that focus on yourself and your well-being and building resilience. So let's kick off. We'll start off with Amy, and it'd be great if you could introduce yourselves to us all.
Thank you, Pam. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Amy Scarfe. I'm a business director at Hayes. So I manage everything from architecture, engineering and construction across New Zealand. And I'm joined with Laura today, and she manages our construction recruitment in Auckland and is also a member of the YPA. So we're going through the topics, as Pam mentioned. We would love questions at the end of each section. Really appreciate sort of engaging with everybody. So there is a chat function for you to ask your questions in. And if we don't get to the end of them, Laura or I will come back to you afterwards and come back to you directly and answer your questions. And feel free to connect with us afterwards if you have questions you want to ask us privately. But would love it to be in this forum. And we'll also share a few links at the end of some information on our website that can sort of back up some of the things we've said, and maybe give you a little bit more information on what we're talking about. But first off, I guess, writing a CV that gets noticed. As Pam mentioned, it is a very competitive market out there, and your CV is the first thing employers will see, and really sort of is the first impressions that you make. So you need to make sure your CV is standing out above and beyond everybody else that's applying for a job. One of the keys for this is just making sure it's focused. You want it to be about 2 pages long, and you want to make sure you're demonstrating your skills that are right for the job you're applying for. How you do that? There's a few different ways. So your personal profile is I would recommend having your name and then a personal profile under your name, about 4 or 5 sentences long, but that's your opportunity to make yourself really stand out. So you want to be demonstrating in that your technical skills that you've either picked up through work experience or university projects, and also some of the softer human skills, which I'll come on to later, that are relevant for the role. But making sure that personal profile is, the key. That's what makes people read and go through the rest of your CV. When going through your CV and talking about your experience, we actually recommend using what we call the STAR technique, which people often think about for an interview situation, but not always for your CV. But by using it, it will really demonstrate your experience and give you some more credibility. So if you don't know, the STAR technique is situation, task, action, and result. So rather than simply saying you worked on a project to design a commercial building, you could add a little bit more substance to that by saying something along the lines of you led a team of 5 in a university project to design a commercial building. This included coordinating, planning and presenting to mentors, and it resulted in top marks and positive industry feedback. It just adds in a lot of your skills in one succinct sentence and gives some examples as to what you've actually done. In line with examples, the other thing I highly recommend is if you can provide some digital evidence that will bring what you've done to life. So if you could link through to an online report, perhaps that you've written, something online, it allows you to write a short sentence, but you could then link it. So if people want further information, they can click through and can see. I mentioned a moment ago as well about human skills. Hayes have written a report recently, and it actually identifies that whilst there's a shortage of some technical skills, it's human skills that people are really looking for at the moment as well when recruiting. Some of those skills that people are really keen on finding on CVs and when interviewing are critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and leadership. So they're the skills that you want to be ensuring you're bringing through when you're writing your CV and demonstrating examples of how you've utilised them. Again, through your university projects, any internships you've done, any work experience you've done. In a CV, I think you also want to show what makes you different, like what makes you stand out and who you really are, and bringing some of your life and personality to it. And you can do that through sort of showing your hobbies, particularly if you have a hobby that may be slightly different. People love, it's a great opening conversation as well. People love talking about what interests people, and it shows your sort of personal passions and demands. Other things could include would be volunteering, anything that shows your sort of creativity, struggling over that word, and interest in the industry, just to add a little bit of you in there, and a bit about what makes you tick. And you might find that your interviewer has the same interest, the same hobby, and that could be a great icebreaker for you. The New Zealand market as well is also very well connected, so we highly recommend putting references on your CV. We often see CVs with references on demand or on request, but really think if you can get those references on there, it gives an opportunity for people to talk about you, add a little bit more interest into you as well by sort of bringing you up. If they know people, they may have gone to university with one of your references themselves or worked on the same project. It's a well-networked industry, so getting your name and references connected is always quite a positive thing. We suggest on that sort of connection, linking your CV through to LinkedIn and putting that LinkedIn profile on there. And Laura in a moment will go through a little bit more about LinkedIn and how to do that, but making sure your LinkedIn profile is on your CV. But the final tip, I guess, on CVs that I've got is AI, and it's something we're asked about an awful lot. AI is fabulous and it will help you with your CV, but you really need to make sure that your CV is demonstrating you and your person and your personality comes through. As recruiters, Laura and I can spot a CV written by AI quite quickly. Some really simple things are the overuse of emojis, a grey background where it's run through AI and literally copied straight into a CV, but also the tone of voice. It doesn't demonstrate yourself, it doesn't show how you write, and it's quite a prescriptive tone of voice. So you need to make sure yourself is coming through. On that, we did it actually, sorry, slightly off spec, but one of my friends actually applied recently for a job and she made a mistake in her application, which she thought would stop her from getting the opportunity. She actually did get to an interview, and when she spoke to the hiring manager, he said that one of the reasons they wanted to interview her was because there was a mistake in her CV, and it meant that it hadn't been written by AI, it hadn't been run through AI, and it was 100% authentically her. So yeah, we've definitely got advantages to AI. Do use it, but just make sure you're not getting rid of your own personal brand and your own personal thoughts and your own tone of voice. But yeah, that's probably my key tips to CV writing. It is a minefield out there, but there's a lot to take on board. Do we have any questions, Pam? Or
yeah, well, I've got a couple, just selfishly.
yes.
You know, when we put out interests, I'm interested in how personalized we should be making the CV or resume. What's the right amount of information to give around our interests? Is it just simply a list to show that we do something other than work, or should we expand into full sentences?
Yeah,
Give a photograph of us rock climbing? I mean, what should be in there?
I wouldn't recommend a photograph, but I would think particularly if you've got accomplishments, they're great to show. So if maybe you play sport competitively, that shows that sort of competitive edge you've got, your team playing. So if you play rather than just, for example, rugby, I play for the under-21s XYZ club. If you sort of are into music and play an instrument, it's really good to show sort of what you've done with that rather than just, I play the violin, I'm part of this concert, I'm part of this band, because that shows some of those skills of teamwork, working with others, that are also translatable into the workplace. So I would expand to some extent, yeah.
these wonderful human skills that we're trying to demonstrate, like critical thinking and leadership, these are really difficult things to demonstrate in a written context, isn't it? Do you have any tips around that, or is it literally, here's a problem I solved where I used critical thinking and leadership, etc.?
I think predominantly just relating it back to a problem. It's very easy to write them as words, like I'm a good leader, I'm good at critical thinking. I think you do need to relate it back to either a project or something you've done in your internship. If you can talk about how maybe you drove a team to this result using your critical thinking or your leadership skills, it just gives some substance and example.
Great. Okay. I do have one other question on CVs. How wacky can we make them in terms of making them memorable and distinctive? And I've got an ulterior motive here. When I was looking for sponsorship for snowboarding, I remember sending out 200 approaches where I did it as a brochure with a clip the coupon for a free snowboarding lesson, which nobody took up. But it was in the era of free steak knives, which I know is a really long time ago. But the whole point was just simply to gain attention. Do you see weird, wacky things like that out there?
We don't, to be honest. And I think if we did, I'd like it sometimes. It makes people stand out. It shows something a little bit different. As you say, whether people will take it up is one thing, but it does make your CV stand out. It makes people talk about you. I'm sure some people discuss your CV, even if they didn't take it up or your application. And I think, anything that makes you stand out to be slightly different, particularly in this competitive market, will make people talk about you. And that's your ultimate game, is you want people to be discussing you.
Right.
There might be a question in the chat just come through then. Did it, Pam?
Yeah, there you go. So if the CV completely fills 2 pages, how prescriptive is the 2 pages scenario? Because I know mine's definitely not 2, but
I think 2 pages is a guideline, to be honest. Over 2 pages is fine, as long as everything you've got in your CV is relevant. We don't want to go into 2 pages if you've got a lot of information about part-time jobs you've had pre-university or so forth. If it's relevant, put it in. We don't want 5 or 6 pages though.
Yeah. Well, we have another question too, which is relevant because a lot of our graduates are here from offshore. So the references that we include, do they need to be New Zealand specific people? Or I guess if they've got an email address, they could be anywhere, right?
Yeah, references could be anywhere. If you do have somebody from New Zealand, that's always great, particularly if it's one of your lecturers or something. But definitely if you've got work experience references from overseas, that gives a really good take on you as well, and a different perspective. And with the use of Teams, I mean, Laura and I are often talking to references overseas, so it's not an issue. It's just being able to have those contact details to email them and line up a Teams conversation.
Awesome. So although we're talking about a PDF, or you might actually be walking a physical copy into an office, who knows, it's great that you talked about the digital evidence and having that link back to our digital footprint. So Laura, you were going to chat about how we match this all up with our LinkedIn or social media profile. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Pam. So what I'm going to cover off, like Pam said, is how to make your LinkedIn stand out. So a lot of the, I guess, professionals that I work with do tend to be site-based, like project managers, site managers, a few quantity surveyors as well. And a lot of them do tend to ignore that LinkedIn is a very strong tool that you can use and be a lot more personalized as well with it compared to your CV. So I'm going to go over a few points that you can use to stand out in a competitive market, especially as a young graduate trying to step into the construction industry, of how you can tailor that so that you stand out compared to the rest. The first thing that you would want is obviously your profile picture. That's your first impression. And you don't need it to be a studio photo or professional photographer to have it be a good profile picture, just something clear that is friendly and professional. If you're often on site, or if you have work experience in the summer where you were a laborer and you have a photo of yourself in PPE that is clear it shows that you're out in the field and can actually work quite well for a lot of, young site engineers that are looking to get into it, project managers, site managers, and things like that. You just need to make sure that it is tidy and well lit, and you're looking approachable in that. I know with CVs, and I think I've covered this off with Amy before, is there's a bit of an up and down of whether to include a photo in your CV. With your LinkedIn profile, that is definitely something that you can have to highlight that aspect. And the next thing you'd want to do, and a lot of people do tend to ignore this, is personalizing your URL for LinkedIn. So I usually recommend, and you can do this on the setting on LinkedIn, is using your first and last name on that link. And then you can put that link into your CV. So even if you don't have a photo, the hiring managers or people that will be reviewing it can click into it, and it'll go into your professional your professional LinkedIn profile. The next thing that you can do to highlight your LinkedIn or to stand out is to write a headline that is more than, graduate. Instead of just saying that, you can tell people what you're aiming for. Something like a graduate site engineer, and highlight that you're passionate about infrastructure and safety first. In this day and age, recruiters and hiring managers are using LinkedIn a lot more to view candidates than to people that are coming through Seek, because it is a lot more tailored to that person. And it helps people to instantly understand the direction of what you're going for, rather than just a generalized headline. And then, like the CV, the next thing you want to make sure that you are highlighting is your professional summary or personal summary. Not a lot of people have this on their LinkedIn, but it will help to make sure that you stand out. And it's your chance to talk about why you chose construction, what you've learned so far, what kind of projects excite you as well. Maybe in an internship that you've done, you've liked working on residential builds, or you're keen to understand more on the sustainable design. That's definitely something that you can highlight in your professional summary if you're looking to step into the construction industry, because that'll be a snapshot of what they view at the start. And the other thing is, if you've used tools like AutoCAD or Revit or Microsoft Projects, make sure you mention them as well, because your understanding or things around software and AI and new designs that are coming through in the industry is definitely something that will be a picture snapshot of what can help you to stand out. And it's those little things that will help to kind of push you through the rest. The next thing that you would want to make sure that you include is to add any experience that you have, even if you haven't had a full-time job yet. What you can look to include is, like I said, any internships that you've done throughout your studies. And you can provide a summary within that as well on what you did cover, whether it was assisting site managers or processing documentation, or even being in meetings with stakeholders and taking meeting minutes. That's definitely something that you can include, because it shows that you have the initiative to be included in things within the industry, that you are learning, that you've applied or are applying what you're doing in your studies to what you want in real-time work. And the other thing that you can include as well is summer jobs that you've had on site. So I know a lot of my graduates that have approached me have done a few laboring work with the likes of civil companies when they do get really busy, and they take on sort of more junior people to work throughout the season. And they have approached me to say if they should include that in their LinkedIn or their CV. It's definitely something that you want to include, because it, one, shows that you want to do something that is relevant to what you are studying, and that you also have hands-on experience. So that will help to push you. A lot of people that are looking to take on sort of new graduates do tend to look at people that have some experience, whether it be really junior on that field, and it shows that you are a lot more proactive. even voluntary work that you do on any builds that you may have, definitely include that in your LinkedIn as well. It's something that does highlight that whether or not it was an internship or not, you do actively are out there, whether it's through community or any other organizations that you're a part of. It helps to give an overview of any real-time experience. If you've not got any of what I've mentioned already in terms of the internship or voluntary builds, the other thing that you can definitely include is any uni projects that mimic real world examples or scenarios, whether it be a paper that you've done that is applicable to, I guess, any of the new AI. I think a lot of it has been on new AI builds and designs. You can include or note that in your LinkedIn. It's definitely something that shows that, you have passion for it, and you've obviously created this document that people can read through. And a lot of my hiring managers as well, or even talent acquisition managers that I've worked with in the past, they've mentioned that, when they do look into papers or things like that, that is something that stands out. And then the next thing that you also want to make sure that you include is your education and certificates. So include your degree or trade qualification if you've gone through the carpentry route. And don't forget to include any extras, like whether you have a site-saved passport from when you've done a bit of that summer work, whether you've been trained in first aid, if you have your working at heights qualification as well, or working in confined spaces, which is, I don't think, but it's just any other extra qualifications that you have, whether you got your wheel tracks rollers as well, that's something that could help to stand out. Just make sure you list that within that. Those are really little golden nuggets in the construction industry, because it shows that you're serious and safety conscious as well. The next thing that you can do, which is something that I always recommend to young grads, is endorsements on your LinkedIn. So you can have or list skills, and being that you don't have, or if you don't have real time experience in the construction industry, you can definitely ask your professors for endorsements on LinkedIn. And if you've got a very good relationship, have them comment that on your LinkedIn as well, in terms of when you were studying on them, or what other extra credits you did to make sure that you were standing out in front of other students, any honorary work that you've done as well. Like Amy said, it is a very well-connected industry, and likely a lot of your professors as well will know people that are actively in the construction industry, and those recommendations also come up in LinkedIn on who to connect with, because they would already be or have that relationship. And more often than not, referrals do come through a lot within the industry, because everyone does know everyone. What I will end off with is, once you do have your profile and you have it structured and it's looking well, and you've included everything that I've spoken over, is to make sure that you keep it active. You want to share articles about construction trends, or comment on posts that are up and coming, or studies, and any articles that come up with new builds. You also want to connect with people that you meet at events or on site, because it is pretty much a digital sort of handshake with people within the industry. It does help to keep you visible, and help you to build relationships that can lead to real opportunities. So like I said, and like Amy referred to as well, it is a very well-connected industry. And I found that a lot of hiring managers as well will just post on LinkedIn rather than advertise, and just say, hey, just reaching out to my network. I'm currently on the lookout for someone junior, or currently on the lookout for this. We have an internship program running. If you know of anyone that is interested, please refer them. and your network as well, and who you're connected with, that will come up and help you as well, in terms of the secret job market, outside of what's actively being advertised. But yeah, I think that covers off the LinkedIn.
That's a really great list, Laura. Thank you. A couple of quick thoughts, and we have got a question in the chat about premium LinkedIn. Look, I just want to say, as an employer, seeing someone's LinkedIn profile is incredibly important. So that point you made about keeping it up to date, even just by reposting areas that you're interested in, and particularly having your headline be something you're curious about. You don't need to be a subject matter expert yet, but you might be interested in sustainability or an aspect of carbon counting, or you can make your headline really pop with that information. When Amy introduced you, Laura, she mentioned that you're part of YPA, which is this lovely acronym for the Young Professionals, which is one of the voluntary committees that the Institute runs. Can you tell us about why someone will get involved with an industry committee, or how they might use that on their LinkedIn or CV?
Yeah, of course. With the Young People's Association committee that I'm a part of, it's definitely a very useful networking tool that you can use to your advantage. It's, especially in that committee, tailored to young graduates, or young professionals that are just looking to navigate in the construction industry. So being part of committees like that are very beneficial, in the sense that, one, you do get exposure or assistance from other people within the committee on who else do they know, or what programs are they running that could help you to network a lot more. And Amy will cover this off in terms of your own personal brand, but just making sure that you are included in active committees within the construction industry, again, ties it all into that networking aspect. And they'll help you with things like the career pathways, and a lot of the young professionals as well in there can provide advice, because it's what it's tailored to. And whether it just be general sort of oversight on site visits and on what's new and up and coming in the construction industry is really helpful, and is definitely something to include in your LinkedIn too, because that will help sort of more on that social aspect. If a hiring manager is seeing it, that you're a part of that committee, more often than not, they can speak with sort of people in there if they know sort of anyone within the YPA or whichever committee you're a part of.
Yeah.
Hey, I've actually seen this person come through, and that's where that referral system comes into as well.
Yeah, it's a great way to grow your social capital, which is really important to do once you enter the industry and once you graduate, and you can start building that as you're finishing up your education as well. I guess also on that is what you said about when you go to site visits and things, of course, on your LinkedIn, you can share a QR code to your profile. So it's a really great way to really quickly get contact information. And look, I'm always stalking people after going to site visits or any other events, because that's how you manage to stay connected to people, which is super interesting. We have got a couple of quick questions, Loralei, in the chat. The LinkedIn Premium, do you have a personal perspective on that, either you or Amy?
I personally don't think that it does make much of a difference whether you get premium or not. When you connect with people, you can send a quick note when you connect with them. Premium, honestly, I wouldn't say it does much difference, other than you can send a message without being connected. But as a job seeker, either or would work.
Got it. And there was another question around overseas experience. I assume, much like the references, including your experience, regardless of which country or region it's in, is important, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
And
Cool.
any endorsements would do.
Yeah, great. Amy, building your personal brand, tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, your personal brand has got two aspects to it. You've got your online personal brand, which obviously Laura's gone over a lot with regards to LinkedIn, but I think everyone just needs to be conscious as well of your social media presence, your brand generally online. People do search for people, and they will Google your name and they will see what's out there. So just I think a little bit of caution around what your online presence is. But I wanted to mainly talk to people about the face-to-face branding and building your brand in person, because I think that's a skill that is a little bit daunting and new, particularly when you're sort of coming into the industry. Networking is a key to getting your brand out there and connecting and building your social capital, as Pam mentioned a moment ago, is a key to sort of getting yourself known in the industry and getting yourself referred. So to start off with, when you're looking for work, it's really important to attend as many industry opportunities and events as possible. Building Institute runs 80 events a year, so they're great to get involved in. I've been on a couple of the site visits. They're a brilliant opportunity to meet new people. There's also other events like the quiz nights and mentor mix. So making the most of industry events. But not just doing that, it's what you do at the events, I think, that's really important. So it's making sure you take that opportunity to introduce yourself to as many people as possible. I always recommend introducing yourself quite honestly and confidently. So telling them why you're there, and acknowledge that you're there and you're looking for work and you are trying to network. People do want to give back in the industry. So even if they don't have a job, if you've introduced yourself, they might know someone else they can introduce you to afterwards. So do introduce yourself really confidently and tell them what you're looking for at the time. Always suggest maybe preparing a couple of questions in the back of your mind so you can keep that conversation flowing. It is quite daunting, sort of trying to have small talk conversations sometimes, particularly if it's new. So some of the key things you could ask to sort of show curiosity is asking people open-ended questions. People also like talking about themselves, you find. So asking people what projects you're working on, what challenges have there been. You could open up a conversation about something maybe you're passionate about, so trends in the market. So sort of what have they seen much change in sustainability practices? How's AI influencing what they're doing on site? So these are open-ended questions, and also try and share some of your experience. So if you're talking about sustainability and it's one of your passions, try and add in something that you've done. You know, like I did a summer placement where I helped with some sustainability audits and learned about compliance. So you're dropping in a little bit of your experience. I always say ask people for advice, and ask them what they did early on in their career. As many examples as you can get about what people have done and how their career pathways have gone is great. So getting people to open up and talk about what they did. I also suggest asking for other connections people have that could be relevant for you, and if they could introduce you. And as of the end game, I think is making sure you follow up with everybody that you've met. So that is look at building genuine relationships and then linking in with them afterwards on LinkedIn, inviting them out for a coffee. But yeah, and I think a key is to using these industry bodies. The Building Institute have got some great connecting events, and it's making the most of those and getting out and asking questions and building relationships and following up. Everybody wants to help. They might not be in a position to offer a job, but people do want to help, and they do want to try and help you refer to other people if they can't be in a position at this stage.
I think that's a really good point, Amy, which is benefiting from other people's generosity. People join the Institute, for example, for 3 reasons: because they want to connect with information and other people, they want to find a place to belong, and they want to give back, because everybody's learnt their lessons, you know, in a hard-earned way, and they are generous. They do want to help other people. So asking other people gives them the gift of being able to be generous as well. So it is a two-way street. I think it's also really helpful to ask for more context. So when you meet people, ask, you know, who else should I talk to in this area? Is there someone else here you can introduce me to? I know it's terrifying going into an event on your own, so go with a buddy. And the other thing is, you know, as you go into the event, you can always just take a quick look at a news page or a construction favourite website and just have one little anecdote or a thing that you can talk about that you think other people will be aware of as well, right? The good thing about a site visit is everything's laid out in front of you that you can talk about. You can talk about that detail, that bit of material, that particular construction technique. Yeah, so there's plenty of stuff to talk about.
And one thing I didn't touch on there is actually having a look at who else, if possible, who the other attendees are, so you can prepare yourself about who you really want to try and target and meet, and maybe prepare something have a look at some of the projects they've worked on, have a look at their LinkedIn profiles before you go in, so you feel a little bit more confident about who you're approaching and you know a bit about them before you go over and say hello.
100%. Yeah, no, that's super good advice. Was there anything you would add, Laura, in there about building your personal brand?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it off, Amy. I think from here, or did you want to go into questions? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm seeing a really
Conscious of
interesting
time.
theme in the questions about the translation between offshore experience and New Zealand context. There's a question about whether it's a New Zealand specific CV, but I think we've already covered off that we are interested to see offshore experience, because experience is experience. It doesn't matter where it's been gained. I guess there was an earlier question which speaks to both your personal brand and how you stand out in a competitive market, which is about the formatting or the layout or the presentation of your CV. Of course, many of us rely on tools like Canva to build these things, but is there anything you would comment on in terms of the aesthetics or the presentation of the CV?
Bullet points is definitely one, so it can be read really clearly. So you want your clear headings of where you're going with your CV, so your profile, your work experience, your education, and your hobbies, and then everything bullet pointed so it makes things clear to see. Bolding keywords sometimes helps as well. I can share a link after this that actually gives some CV formats that you can actually have a look through it as well,
Right.
and have a look at some of the examples that Hays uses.
Yeah, that's actually a really good segue, because I was looking at the Hays website before, and there's a huge amount of information around career guidance, CV preparation. And of course, you've got some great reports. You've got your skills report. I think the latest one just came out, or your salary guide, the latest one just came out. You've got your salary checker. So there's a huge amount of resources there. And over at the Building Institute's website, we've got a huge amount of podcasts. The Tall Stories podcasts are literally career stories. So they help you with understanding career pathways. And we also have a career pathways project, which is about to become live in terms of output in the next couple of months. So that'll be really good, because it shows very much the different paths that people take. It's good to have a broad mind about where you might end up, because it might not be where you originally thought you were headed. But yeah, heaps of resources out there.
And I think one thing, I think Laura was going to touch on it a little bit, were you about sort of flexing your no muscle as well and staying resilient in the market?
Yeah, cool.
Over to you, Laura. Did you want to?
Yeah, tell us about standing out in a competitive market.
Yeah. So I think we're all aware, sort of within the construction industry, it has been very tough in terms of the job front. So it has been quite competitive as well, just in terms of how saturated it has been. So I know it is quite difficult for a lot of the juniors as well. But there are quite a few things on top of, your CV, your LinkedIn, networking that you can do to stand out, especially if it is sort of live roles or internships that you are going for. What I'd like to cover in that is sort of more on the follow-up process as well, on how to stand out is if you are actively applying for roles, there's definitely no harm in applying and then sending a quick email, either to, if it's listed, to the hiring manager, to express your interest in the role. Just let them know really a quick summary on why you think you are relevant based on the requirements that have been listed. And then what I would suggest there, or so the advice around that, is leave it at that at the start, especially if it is a new advertisement. A lot of companies do go through their own recruitment process, so they are still shortlisting, but that is one thing that you can do to stand out, is reach out directly. Following that, if you've not had a response, usually there's an end date coming up for applications on a Seek advertisement. What you can do is, if you've already sent an expression of interest following your application, you can follow up in about 2 weeks. I would always recommend just a quick follow-up message saying, hi, I haven't heard back yet. I just wanted to follow up to see where you are at with this process. I'd be keen to discuss further. I am very interested in your company, and you can also list the why. On the 2-week follow-up, you can contact them or give them a call. There's no harm in that, just to say, hi, I'm just making an introduction. I've sent an application. I just wanted to see if there's anything else that you'd like to know more about, or if there's anything that might hold me back from either securing an interview or any feedback that you have at the moment. And the critical thing there is around the feedback. So whether you're right or not for the role, asking around sort of more information is great. And I'll touch on this more on the flexing the no muscle towards the end. But that will help you as well for other applications moving forward. And with that follow-up call as well, just have something prepared on why you think you're relevant for the role, and highlighting sort of any experience, any papers that you've written in relation to, if it's in particular to an internship, any on-site experience, like I said, on the LinkedIn, that you can highlight in terms of standing out. And a lot of the time as well, with how saturated the market is, it's people that do reach out directly, because again, it's around that soft skill that has been lacking in the industry lately. And I've said this to a lot of the people that I speak with or I help with on the job hunt, is people hire people, they don't hire CVs. So your technical experience is really your foot in the door, but the people aspect is what will really help you to stand out. So on top of sort of all the networking that you do and having those conversations, people do want to give back, like we have said. And even if it's not the right opportunity for you now, people will always remember. And because it's such a small industry, you never know, that person that you spoke with might become a client in the future. And it's just having that understanding, or a little bit of a shift in sort of the job hunting mentality, to have a bit of resilience. It is very difficult, and it's something that I want to touch on, is you can do everything right on, your CV, your LinkedIn profile, the networking opportunities, but it is still a very tough market. So it's shifting your mentality a bit on the resilient side to get a few more out of it, in terms of wins that you can view that opportunity for. Whether it be, you spoke with them and maybe it wasn't right, but it was a good conversation, and that person may be, well, actually, that was actually such a lovely conversation. This person is actually good. You ask for referrals. They'll most likely say, look, it's probably not right for us, but maybe have a look at these other companies, or I can ask around my own network to see if there's anyone interested. And that in itself will kind of bring back some return. What I would also recommend as well on standing out is, I know there's been quite a lot of sort of advertisements and multiple applications that go through. On the personal front is just being very organized on your job hunt. And I've had a graduate, as an example, contact me in terms of how they're finding the job market. And they had an Excel sheet really on where they've applied, where their application status is, why they felt that was relevant to them, and the outcome that they had. And that in itself is really, really good and proactive approach in the current job market. And the thing that highlighted it for me as well was the outcome on what they had said. And it was not the right opportunity due to X, Y, and Z. And what they said to me is they applied that to the next application that they had in terms of the follow-up. And they managed to secure an interview. So it's just making sure that you're using a bit of the feedback that you get as constructive application for your next venture, your next opportunity, because that will help you long term. And what I will say as well is the resilience that you build now will help you in your long-term career very strongly and very favorably as well. And I think with what Pam had said and Amy had said on flexing that no muscle is, you get to build a lot of resilience on challenges that you come up with in the future. And you tend to get a lot of that as well in construction, whether it be deadlines or budget restrictions. This is the first step in a very challenging market as well, and a very challenging career path. So it's just having kind of that mentality around it, and the conversations and people skills that you develop now will only help strengthen that network long term. And people remember the positive interactions that you have with them, don't they? So it's just having that. I understand that it is very difficult, and it will turn. Everything is cyclical, but just changing a bit of that mentality around what could be good wins for you will just help make the job search a lot easier.
Absolutely. There were two really gold, well, there's so much information in that. Thanks, Laura, but this idea of the lessons learned and recycling them is incredibly important. So keep a track of the things you are learning and the goals that you are kicking. If I circle back to that silly story I said about standing out and the free snowboarding lesson, I sent 100 of those out and got 98 no's, but the 2 yeses were gold. So yeah, you absolutely do build up that resilience muscle, don't you? We have unfortunately run out of time, so I'm just going to wrap it up. This recording will be on the resources page of our website, along with the other industry insights. We will include links to all the helpful Hays links that we've mentioned. The next Industry Insights is on the 17th of September, same time, same place, and we'll be looking deeply at the digital aspects of the Archives building, which is an incredible building in Wellington that has been built on time and on budget, if you can believe it, and also with an amazing digital twin, which is going to be used for the facilities management. So we'll have Alex Hampshire from WT, we'll have Linda Wong, and we'll have Hannah Hawke from LT McGuinness. So we'll see you back then. Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you very much, Laura. We look forward to talking to you all again. Thanks for all the great questions. Ka kite anō.